Tuesday night. I am Trisha with Insectopia here to chat with you all about some bugs. As you may know, we have been doing this thing we've been calling Invertober, where we've been live streaming every single night of the week. I hope that you've been enjoying it just as much as I have. I've been having a blast, and I also think it's really good for me to keep up with all of these other side projects and, do them alongside you. So that's really awesome. This gives me the opportunity to get you to know you guys better, but also to really finish projects I've kind of had on the back burner for a little bit. So this is Invertober. On Mondays we do live animals. Tuesdays we look over some of my tarot cards. Thursdays and Sundays we do new sketches. Wednesdays and Fridays we do inklines of old sketches, and then every Saturday we spread Sphinx moths. We spread death head moths, which is why we get a beautiful death head on the graphic over here. So I saw that there were a number of you who have already joined us. Welcome, Susan. I love to see you here regularly. It just makes me so happy. Perfect. So we are going to be covering the, what do we call it? We call it a suit, I guess? Yeah. So we're going to cover the suit of swords today. In my Insect Tarot deck, the swords are all flies. So we get to spend a little bit of time today discussing flies and talking about some of the different meanings that you can find in them. But also, I have a number of the fly tarot cards that I have not finished or kind of chosen an insect yet. So it's definitely possible that over the course of the next little bit of time, we're going to sketch some together, or I'm going to get some ideas as to kind of what flies fit in. Awesome. I think I jumped around the swords a little bit because there were a couple that I wasn't really sure about. Good. All right. Awesome. So, just to let you know, swords as a suit, if you are looking at the general tarot deck, swords are normally associated with the element of air. They a lot of times talk about, air is generally associated with speaking and mental energies and those types of things. But when you're talking about a sword, a lot of times when you pull sword cards, the energy is very destructive. And you'll be seeing that in a lot of these cards here. They're not negative, but they may be noting that something is going down. The idea, though, is that even though swords are destructive, they're also kind of helping clean up your life a little bit, or maybe clean out clutter that doesn't need to be there, or move through difficult situations. Those are the types of situations you would see swords in. And when I think of kind of destructive air energy, I think of flies. Maybe it's mostly because mosquitoes, those are very destructive and they fly, one of the most deadly insects, right? And also their mouth parts are very long and thin. And so I thought, if something was flying and also had a sword. Also, if you've ever been looking at under the microscopes with me when we look at like a horsefly or a deer fly or any of those kind of biting flies, they do look like they have little daggers or little knives that they use to kind of cut the skin and drink the blood. So for all of those reasons, flies are swords, and I'm sticking to it. All right. So, as you may remember this from last week, but we have aces, just like you would have in a normal suit, and then you go numbers, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10, and then we have a page, a knight, a queen, and a king. So it goes ace to 10 and then page to king with 4 instead of 3 like a normal suit. So tarot cards have just a couple more cards than a normal deck of cards. Plus they have the major arcana, which is essentially like a whole nother bonus suit. That we'll go over at some point, I believe. Alright, so our first card, that's not the right one. This is the right one. The first one we are talking about today is the Ace of Swords. Now, I believe we talked about this last week also, that a lot of times the energy in aces, if you see them, if you pull them, are a lot of times things that could happen, but they require your own interaction, so they kind of require you to do something so that you gain whatever new thing the ace is trying to simplify. There we go. Alright, so on my little card down here are some of the kind of cheat words I use, is that maybe there's a problem to solve, but that's going to lead to growth, and that there's an opportunity to do the right thing, but it must be grasped. And when I think of the opportunity to do the right thing, or something that you need to do to accomplish a task, I don't know, maybe catching a fly? And I know that it's not directly a fly, but honestly, it's what I thought of. So when I have an entomologist's hand here, and this is a net, and this handle is definitely going to be like that little blue plastic, because that's the net type that I always used to use when I was a kid. And there's going to be this singular fly on our card here. And honestly, it doesn't matter what type of fly this is. It looks to me just like some type of bottle fly, a blue bottle fly or green bottle fly, but you notice that it does have the front wings and the halteres. Yeah, alright, so Susan added, because swords and flies are like the same thing, she said tachinid flies also look like they have swords sticking out all over their butts. And that's so true, they have those really thick bristles that could almost look like swords. Alright, so one thing that we were doing is that after we were kind of going over what these cards are, I was going through and I was inking a lot of these lines. And I would like to continue to do that. So let me get some of these lines a little straighter. I noticed that my net may not have been straight all the way through. I think I drew that line when I was tired. I remember it being like 4 in the morning. So it makes sense that it wasn't all the way straight. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink our fly here, because I think that's what I was doing on the other side, is I was just doing the inking on the insects, and then maybe the item that insect was interacting with. I'm just double checking really quick. I want to make sure I stay kind of along the same. Yeah, this will be fine. Cool. Alright, so we're going to be inking this fly here. And so this, the energy when you're thinking about these aces, you just need to know that you have to grasp something, or it's going to require some type of interaction on your part. Essentially, like, the universe isn't going to give you what you need, but the opportunity exists out there for you to grasp it when you're seeing these cards. We have our beautiful fly here. I am going to go ahead and give it some wing venation coming off here. Yay! Alright, and that net is definitely on its way to catch the fly. And you know what? I'm actually pretty happy with this hand here. Normally, I like to, you know, edit my hands pretty thoroughly, but I'm pretty happy with this one. It's got its fingers tucked nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and just line this one too. Oh, I like it a lot. Yes, Susan, I am left-handed. So sometimes it makes it really interesting when I'm sketching and trying to like work around cameras and things like that, but let's see. Alright, I am pretty happy with that. I'll probably, let's see, I can add this. Oh no, my kitty is gonna come and say hi to us. Sammy, you can't be here right now. I'm sorry, baby. Alright, she's going away. Perfect. Alright, so that's our Ace of Swords. When we move on, alright, so the Two of Swords is one of those cards that we can talk about. Oh, you want to see the kitty, Susan? Sammy! I think I may have scared her away. Next time she comes over here, I'll hold her for you. But I do believe, not next Monday, but 2 Mondays from now, we are going to have a live meet and greet with the cats, and they're going to share their trick. My kitties can do a trick. All right. So, that's the Ace of Swords, and we're going to be moving on to the Two of Swords. Although, here's the thing, I haven't sketched the Two of Swords yet. So, the meaning behind the Two of Swords is supposed to be that there's some type of indecision, or that there's this mediator involved. You're kind of going in between two things. And so it's talking about kind of maybe the fact that you need to take a break and withdraw to yourself to figure out and contemplate between two decisions. And I've been trying to figure out a fly that would equal that, kind of a this or a that fly, or two decisions, or maybe black and white. Also, it's the Two of Swords, so we're going to be drawing 2 flies on it. Yeah, so we're going to be drawing 2 individual flies on it, and we're talking about some type of mediator fly. You know, the funny thing is that I have this huge, oh, it's green, so it goes right through the green screen. I have this huge book on flies, their natural history, and all of these things. And it is actually a really awesome, it's actually a really awesome reference for flies, and if you're like me and you don't have a whole lot of experience with them, or you need to know more, this is one of those books that's super helpful. Let's see. So, because not only do they have, like, long descriptions of all of the families, but also, it has colored images of all of these wonderful flies. A fly that requires a mediator, maybe a parasitoid. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe, oh, we should look up a parasitoid that multiple go into the one. Or maybe, maybe instead of an insect parasitoid, maybe a gall. I bet you there's a gall fly that you could probably draw a sort of stem for. And then you could draw one fly kind of outside of the gall, and then another one maybe like in its pupal form inside of the gall. And then you're talking about indecision. To emerge or not to merge? That is the question. So that's a fun idea. I will definitely play around with it, and I think that's what we're going to do with these cards I haven't sketched, is we're going to talk about the meaning. We're going to kind of come up with an idea, and then I'm going to give myself a light sketch to think about, because some of these cards take a minute. I also have to come back in and add some of the symbology that is naturally in the Two of Swords. For instance, the moon is going to be one of those items that is going to be in the background of the Two of Swords. I believe Libra has a constellation, and I'll need to look that up. And I'll probably sneak the constellation. You'll see sometimes that I just have the constellation in the backgrounds of my cards, but sometimes I'll sneak them into like the wing Venetian or a fly antenna or something fun. So we'll see where we can fit Libra. I'm going to go ahead and write it in here so I don't forget. And then there's going to be some type of mountain-like structure in the background. Mountains are regularly found in tarot cards, and they just generally represent kind of challenges to overcome, and you'll see a lot of them in the Swords cards. So that card is coming along all right. That makes me pretty happy. Oh, especially since I had a whole suit of Hymenopterans and didn't include a single gall wasp. You're so true. You know, sometimes I feel a little bit bad about that, and it's like, maybe I should try and find a place. You know, I think I have a couple of the major arcana that I haven't put anything in yet. And I think I have the Fool. I'll have to look up some of the Fool's meanings to see how I'm going to do that one. But there's another one I think would be better. Where is it? My cards got all out of order the last time I interacted with them, and I haven't put them back in order. But I thought that I had another one. Maybe it's just the Fool. Yeah. Look at me, I'm doing good. Haha. So many cool oak gall wasps. Oh, that is awesome. I spent a little bit of time showing some kids gall wasps. We looked at the leaves and I was like, what do you think those are? What do you think types of animals might be affecting the tree leaves? Do you think it's something the tree did all by itself? Because some of them saw the galls and they thought that it might have been a nut that fell through the leaf before they looked at it closer. And so it was really fun to kind of look through those and come up with an answer. Alright, so our next one, so I have a handful of them here in the beginning that I haven't finished, and then we've got a good number of them that I have, and then some at the end. So we'll see what happens. Now, our next card that we're going to talk about is the Three of Swords. A lot of times the Three of Swords in the tarot deck, it looks like three swords that are going through a heart. Like there's a heart in the center of the card and the swords kind of go through this way. And a lot of times it represents a really difficult loss that you're going to have to go through. Maybe you're going through it now or talking about a future loss that's up and coming. But it also represents, because there's also this heart here. So even though it's loss, it's making room for growth and understanding. So it's kind of like, it could be a physical loss, like a death in a family, but it also could be like just letting go of an idea that you've been really connected to. And so that's what the Three of Swords represents. So some type of difficult loss. And I wonder what the shortest lifespan of a fly is. It's only like a couple of days, right? 2 days? Oh my goodness. Check this out. There is a... Oh, but that's not a true fly. That's a mayfly. That doesn't count. Oh, come on. They're giving me, They're giving me all mayflies. You know, there's a fly that I haven't given any, any space to, and that is the New Zealand glowworm has a fly that's actually pretty cool. So, let's see. It looks like Susan has some ideas. Maybe an assassin bug with a fly impaled on it. Ooh, or 3 assassin bugs. Yes, they do. They end up spending a good amount of time as larvae. So their lifespans are actually pretty long, even though the flies are pretty short. So it looks like we are, you know, I like the idea of assassin bugs. I was admittedly trying to come up with a fly that would do the same thing. But, you know, we were just talking about the fact that there are some horse flies and... Oh, I got it! I got it! So we were just talking about the fact that there are some horse flies and deer flies. When you look at them really close, they have that kind of sword-like mouth part that goes underneath their sponging mouth part. I'm thinking I actually do sketch the heart. And so I put a heart here, and then I put 3, let's say, deer flies with their heads really close. Let's see what it looks like. If I don't finish the heart all the way so it looks really zoomed in, and I take maybe, let's see. And you know, with these deer flies, we've looked at them under the microscope enough at this point. You know that they are mostly eyes. So this whole section is going to be kind of this creepy kind of checker spot fly eye with this, it's got the aristate antenna. And then you have this mouth part that looks kind of like a stalk with a little sponge at the end of it. So that's going to be 1. But the important part of this sketch is right here where its stabby mouth part comes out and it's going to kind of stab the heart. And then I can do that 3 times. I think it's going to look cool. So if I could probably make it fairly symmetrical too. So if I bring in this fly that's like this. And I'll have to make sure that the heart is large enough and even. You know, mosquitoes sucking blood would have been awesome also, but I've already done mosquitoes on another card, and I don't want to do mosquitoes a whole bunch because I feel like that's taking away, that would kind of take away from, we need to find more unique flies. We can't just go back to mosquitoes when we want to think of a creepy fly. Is what I'm thinking. So that, I think, is about what it's going to look like. Don't mind my really rough kind of like sketchy sketch. This is how I sketch out ideas in real life when I'm not doing it live and talking about every like individual part. I'll just kind of sketch them out really quick. So we've got the sponge-like mouth part. We've got these sword-like mouth parts that are coming down here. We might even make it kind of like grody. We'll see what happens. And then you've got the one coming up from this way. And so my question is going to be like, all right, with all these fly heads in the way, how do I make sure that people can still see that it's a heart? But I'll make sure that one's obvious. And that's the 3 of swords, so we do have 3 flies there. So I would say that's probably symbolic of a difficult loss. They're taking a huge risk of getting swatted for the sake of the next generation. That's true. Deerflies have gorgeous eyes. Oh no! You got bit by a deerfly because you were taking its picture. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that they're, especially because they have all those metallic colors inside of them too. Alright, so what I'm going to do is we're going to skip 4 and 5 because I don't have those. We're going to jump to 6 and we'll come back to 4 and 5. If that's alright with you, ladies and gentlemen. Or we can do them. Ace, 2, 3. We might as well do them. We're here. So, the 4 of swords. So we only have 2 more left that I haven't done. And then we'll get to all the ones that we're going to talk about and do some inking. Admittedly, I thought that the swords were more complete, and I came downstairs, and I was like, I must have skipped 2 through 6. I must have been having a hard time coming up with a variety of flies, or, like, coming up with their, like, ways to sketch their mouth parts. Don't mind me. I disappear when I drink water. Okay. So the 4 of swords, when it's generally sketched and you see it in cards, it looks like a man sleeping or a man resting. Sometimes it's a man kind of in his coffin, kind of taking an infinite rest. And you've got generally some swords hanging over him, or a sword underneath him on the coffin, or symbology like that. And a lot of times what your meaning is that it kind of symbolizes the need to take a break, right? It shows that, hey, it's a card that might remind you that, like, it may not be it's not a weakness to rest. So as you're going out in the world, you may be working really hard, putting your all into everything, and then you're afraid on the other side to really relax and let go of everything. And this is a card that's like, hey, remember to relax. Kind of just lay here and chill for a minute, you know, take a break. So that's what this card kind of symbolizes and is going to show. And so with the 4 of swords, I will likely be doing some type of pupa, some type of fly pupa. My guess is that my fly pupa are going to be on, there's going to be 4 of them because it needs to be the 4 of swords. And they're probably going to be on something like, let me look up the symbology of the card really quick. Oh no. What type of fly would be on the side of a tomb? Like a rock wall? I'll have to look up fly pupae that may live on a rock face. We'll just kind of draw a tomb. That's going to be a really cool image on the tarot card with 4 fly pupa connected to this kind of creepy old tomb. I'm likely going to, we already have the flies, and those are representative of swords. But I'm likely also going to I'm going to probably try to, instead of up here making a cross, I'm probably going to attempt to make a circle and then add some kind of stained glass in here. stained glass is one of those symbols that is sometimes in the cards, and I thought it would be cool to add it in here somehow. So we're going to add kind of maybe some stained glass up here, and then you have those 4 pupil cells. And so when we're talking about the 4 of Swords, it's time to take a break. So these pupa are resting, they're turning into liquid, and they are actually on a final resting place too. So that's fun. Thank you for inspiring me. Stained glass is nicely reminiscent of compound eyes. Oh, I love that. You make a wonderful point here. I'm going to write that so that I remember it. And so when we're talking about stained glass, it's a reminder to look at things from like a larger perspective. And so that's kind of cool, is because stained glass is a lot of times telling you to kind of look at it from a different view, and having it resemble a compound eye is going to be a really, really cool comparison in the symbology. All right. So, the 5 of Swords. The last one before we get to ones that I did finish. But I'm enjoying going through these anyway and getting some of these first outline sketches done. And you know what? You are literally the first ones to see them, because these ideas are happening in real time. All right. So our 5 of Swords in the tarot deck is a lot of times it's kind of like a guy who's trying to carry a bunch of swords, but is dropping them. That's generally what it looks like. So sometimes he'll be holding some, sometimes he'll be holding all of them, but it'll look really unbalanced. Sometimes half of them will already be on the ground. A lot of times there are, like, his friends are walking away from him, or like there are villagers walking away from him, kind of trying to symbolize that he's kind of solo. And so, when we're talking about the 5 of Swords, the idea is that, you know, you may be trying to carry all of these things, but your actions have now become self-defeating, right? You're trying to do all of these things, and you're actively dropping swords everywhere, right? And at this point, you're dropping so many swords that your friends or your colleagues or whoever is seeing this happen may be stepping back from you, or maybe walking away. And so the idea is that, well, maybe you should put down a couple of swords and go and join your colleagues, or you know, that maybe winning or doing it all may not be the most important thing at this very moment. You know, maybe putting another thing into perspective is going to be your kind of best move or your best goal at this point. Susan says she's picturing those larvae that stick debris all over themselves. Stop trying to carry 5 swords. Be like your 4-sword friend and take a break. Oh, that's so funny. Now, I believe that the animals that you're talking about that stick stuff all over themselves, those are ambush bugs. If I have it right. I do not believe that there are any dipteran that carry... Are there any dipteran that carry a case? I don't know. I don't think so. I can't think of any, case-bearing maggot. There are case-bearing caterpillars. There are case-bearing caddisflies. There are case-bearing beetles. I do not believe there are case-bearing flies. What about a fly so covered in mites that it can't fly? Ooh. I like that idea. Let's see. So, or maybe instead of mites, maybe it's covered in pseudoscorpions. Because pseudoscorpions I would associate more with a sword. And if I was going to be doing the 5 of swords, I would want to do kind of a fly in the center and then maybe 4 pseudoscorpions on him. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to draw a fly and we're going to put 4 pseudoscorpions on him. Oh man, that's going to be fun. So there are all types of different flies out there, and I'm definitely going to have to add some unique characters in here. I might be changing this guy around. But what I think I want to do... Oh, you know what? I might be changing my mind. So I have this choice between doing this fly that's covered in pseudoscorpions. That should be super cool, and it talks about, you know, trying to carry something, but he's not really doing it on purpose, you know. Those pseudoscorpions are latching onto him, and he's kind of being dragged down, and that misses the symbology just a little bit, because the idea is supposed to be self-defeat, like self-harm, rather than being dragged down. So my thought is, instead of doing that, what we do is we fit in a spot for the New Zealand glowworm. I was just thinking I really wanted to find a spot for the New Zealand glowworm. So here's my thought. These guys, they have a silk line, and what they do is they create this silk thread that has 2 kind of bases, and these are structural. And this silk thread is also structural. It's kind of a very thick silk. And this is a maggot. This is a fly. We call them the New Zealand glowworms. And when they're on their thread, it's only going to look like he's like this big, which I guess will be fine. And so he's like this big. But the other thing is that he doesn't just make this thread that goes horizontally. What he does is he's kind of like a fisherman. He drops strands of silk down into caves. So this is a cave-dwelling maggot that creates these silken lines. And I'm thinking that we're going to have 5 strands of silk coming down, and that will symbolize our numbers, our 5 numbers. I want to add the adult fly in here, and I don't remember exactly how to sketch them other than they have really big wings that you wouldn't expect and really long legs. And so I'm going to have to look back up what these guys look like. I actually made a whole 4-minute video on the New Zealand glowworm. So if you haven't gone through all of my whiteboard videos and checked it out, I definitely suggest going and checking this one out because it's a lot of fun. So we've got our glowworm, our glowfly here, and then our little maggot here. Now, here's something interesting. So we've got this silk line, but we haven't talked about what glows. The eggs glow, the maggots glow, the pupa glows, and the adults, I don't know if the adults glow. I would have to look that one up. I know at least 3 out of the 4 life stages glow. And here's the thing. These maggots not only glow themselves, but they leave behind little droplets of glowing poison, essentially. They leave droplets of glowing poison. And it glows So it's actually attracting prey in. It's going to be attracting little flies in. And once these strands have enough little flies in their caught up in it, the maggot will crawl over there and they eat the whole strand. They just sit up here at the top and they just start consuming it. And they consume their own toxins and they consume the protein that is all of the insects that are stuck to it. So this maggot is actually a predatory maggot. And I like to liken this kind of trap setup to like fishermen who set up one buoy all the way down here and then they drop multiple hooks, right, down into the water. That's what our New Zealand glowworm is doing, but in a cave with light to catch fly rather than in the water with a hook to catch fish. And the insects did it first. So I'm thinking that the idea behind this self-defeat, because you're maybe wondering, all right, it's a really cool story, but where does the self-defeat come in? Or that maybe winning may not be the most important thing. I'm thinking that maybe I overstock these with so many flies that it's like the maggot could never eat them all. And maybe the strand is breaking. Maybe that's what I do, like something like this where there's only one on this side. So it's like, oh no, you've bit off more than you can chew. Yeah, Susan, I love that. And then the line being bowed down. Yes. You're right. That's definitely what it should be. And then our friend here is like, oh no! My line's going down! What do I do? Alright, so I believe that's going to be the Five of Swords and the story behind it. The Five of Swords also has some other symbology in the background. A lot of times it has an ocean or a large water body, and I know that regularly in these caves you'll see kind of a river flowing down through them. So what I'm going to do is kind of create this water body underneath. That'll be blue and shimmery. Maybe going in this direction. So we'll create kind of this water body underneath. Let's see, what else is going to be there? Not much. I mean, mountains and clouds maybe, but I'll see how it all fits in kind of whimsically. I mean, the mountains can definitely just be resembled in the rock faces of the cave. And clouds, the symbol that they're going for is, they essentially represent thoughts. Let's see. I don't know if it needs to be there. All right, here we go. We have the Six of Swords. We have already sketched this one, although some of these Mosquito Pupae I'm going to resketch, so I don't know if I'm going to be inking this one just today. I might do the guy. I think he's pretty good. I'm probably not going to change much about him. And the leaf. And we can do this fly. So we'll do a handful of them. We're just going to avoid, I think, this region until we might get it done. We'll see what happens. All right, so the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords is a lot of times going to be discussing transition. A lot of times, transitioning, like moving or traveling, so going from one place to another place physically, or kind of making a mental change where you are moving away from destruction or abuse, those types of things. So, the Six of Swords is all about transitioning, and it's transitioning from one space to another space, either physically or emotionally. And I have on here, but also kind of moving away from destruction. I also wanted to kind of get that in, because in the swords, when we're talking about swords, a lot of times there is some type of tragedy or some type of destruction that you have to overcome before you can move forward. Whereas last week when we were talking about the other six, the six of... Oh, what was it? Is it the Six of Wands? Yeah. When we were talking about the Six of Wands, oh no, it wasn't that one. I was thinking about the transition one in Wands. I was thinking about the Three of Wands. So I was thinking about this one, the ant that was transitioning in this leaf boat over the water, because this one is also about transition, and it also shows somebody in a boat. So they're kind of similar, whereas the Wands really talks about kind of having long-term plans and setting forward, you know, having had thought through it much and then going through with your plans. That was kind of the idea behind the Three of Wands. Whereas the Six of Swords, it's like you're moving from this place to that place, and you're either leaving something destructive behind, or you are going to be moving through something that's going to kind of break things for a minute, but it'll all come back together in the end type of situation. Sometimes... So that's a lot of times what we're talking about. And I have mosquitoes here. Not only mosquitoes because they're number one kind of destructive, they're the most deadly insect, but secondarily, I like to talk about these guys are in pupal and adult form. So they are literally transitioning. Right, so this one down here is a pupa that's still hanging out in the water. It's kind of curled down because this boat just went by. But then I have this guy right here. This pupa actually just emerged as this fly. And he's like pointed. He's looking at this guy. He's like, I'm going to eat him. I'm going to eat him. And, you know, because this is an insect tarot deck that I've been sketching, obviously the insects are way larger than all of the other things, right? So our mosquito is like the size of this guy's head. But that's okay. Wands last week. Thank you, Susan, for the help out, for the hand. And yes, those are definitely some super plumose antenna. And mosquitoes, a lot of times when we're talking about plumose antenna, it is the mosquitoes that a lot of times I'm thinking about, because they have, they're kind of the most common insect that have truly plumose antenna, and not bipectinate. I like that this wand is going behind this plant, so I left those lines there. So for me, and my tarot deck personally, I will admit I am not the best at sketching human faces. Insects is where it's always been at for me. So I made the decision to kind of make all of my people kind of essentially grown-up stick figures. They're circles without eyes or mouths or real features. I figure that can also be, it can also kind of symbolize that it could be anybody, right? So people can look at this image and maybe see themselves, Whereas if I sketched one person or one thing, then people may not be able to see themselves in the image. So that was the reasoning for that. And so essentially all my guys are going to be like this. Here we go. I love it. Yeah. So humans are hard, number one. And then I guess secondarily, they're not bugs. And if this is a bug tarot deck, I kind of want them to stay in the background. So I don't want there to be so much detail in these guys that they take away from my flies anyway. Even if I was really great at drawing faces. So there's that. But I do have some decent sketches of mosquito pupae here that I'm kind of excited about. Because they are plate-like, and then they kind of are this swirly, and then they've got kind of these looking veins here, but that's because that's where the wings are forming. And you'll see that they kind of have these two stems. Those two stems on a mosquito pupa are actually they're the spiracles. So that's how that's how the pupa are breathing. And so they do need to, they'll generally stay kind of floated up here at the top of the water. But then if the top of the water is disturbed, or if they're kind of messed with or shaken a little bit, they will kind of curl, and they can dive down into the water a little bit. And so that's what this image is kind of showing here, is that one kind of diving down a little bit. He was a little bit afraid of this boater coming by. And then I have this one here that actually just emerged, and I stacked these guys on top of each other just because it's kind of trying to show this, like, there's so many of them too. So this mosquito here is emerging from its pupa. And it has these really fluffy plumose antennae. Flies are actually unique. Mosquitoes are unique in Diptera, or in flies, because they are the only flies that have scales on their wings. So butterflies are known to have scales on their wings, right? But not very many people realize that mosquitoes also do. So when we're looking at mosquito wings, the wings themselves are clear. They're see-through. They don't have any scales. But if you use a microscope and you zoom in on a mosquito's wings, right where you see the wing veins are actually darkened. The wing veins are darkened by scales. And that's the distinguishing feature in flies, or in mosquitoes. So if you were to try and look at a fly and you were trying to decide if it was a mosquito or not, you don't even have to look at the wing venations. You don't have to know anything about the hairs on the thorax. All you have to know is that if the wings have scales or not. And so this mosquito has 6 legs. He's flying away. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 mosquitoes and my man here. And you know what? We're just going to do it because I think I'm actually pretty happy. This card here was actually one of my first, this card here was one of my first fly cards. And that's one of the reasons why when someone had mentioned, hey, let's do a mosquito, I thought, because I already have 6 mosquitoes that are coming up. All right. Aha! This is the 7 of Swords. Now, the 7 of Swords is a... Oops, I'm going to drop my camera. The 7 of Swords is a unique card, and I laugh about the fly that I chose for the 7 of Swords. This, my friends... This is a robber fly. Now, you may not realize it, but the 7 of Swords in the tarot deck is regularly drawn as a guy kind of stealing a bunch of swords. He's got a handful of them, and he's kind of running away with these swords in his arms. And so, the symbology behind that is kind of like he is stealing, right? So he is serving his own needs, even if he has to be deceptive, right? He's taking what he wants, even though there are other negative consequences occurring. The swords are all about wind, keep in mind. So throughout my sketches, I try and do things that symbolize wind. In this sketch, I went with dandelion fluffs. So you can see here that there are a number of flies. I believe these are little fruit flies, mixed in with these dandelion floofs. And this guy right here, that's a robber fly. That's my little joke to myself, because the 7 of Swords is regularly kind of, a guy who is... He's a robber. He's like stealing all these swords. And I was like, if it's a robber, he needs to be a robber fly. And then I was trying to come up with a way that like robber flies would serve their own needs, or like even if they needed to be deceptive, right? So I was thinking that this robber fly is one of the robber flies that is a bee mimic. So when I color him, he's definitely going to be a bee mimic. Because then he's even really kind of sneaking around, pretending to be something that he's not, eating other flies, you know, stealing the life from those flies, poor guy. And we have a 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there are 7 flies sketched on our friend here. And that is what we're looking at. So that is going to be our 7 of Swords. Robber flies look like serial killers that killed a bee and now they're wearing it as a suit. Yeah, I see it. I definitely see it. Especially the bee killer robber flies that actually eat bees. I believe they're in the genus Mallophora. Yeah. So if you look up the genus Mallophora, if you don't know what Susan is talking about, look up the genus Mallophora, and you will see a whole bunch of robber flies that look like they're wearing bee suits. They're just yellow and fluffy and super cute, but also they are bee killers, so they do catch and eat bees and wasps. So you'll see a lot of them, like with paper wasps in their midst, and you know, a lot of people actually like that they eat those guys. So the 7 of Swords. I'm going to go ahead and ink my sketch here really quick. I'm going to start up here at I'm actually going to start at the robber fly, but I actually do love these dandelion fluffs. So we are likely going to also be going over those guys right there. Alrighty. So that's our head here. It's super fluffy, so I'm trying to kind of add these lines rather than keeping it really solid and straight, especially in the head area. In the thoracic region, I'll probably be able to add those at another time. So let's see. So I'm giving him all of these sclerites also in his legs because I want to make sure that we're getting the side of our robber fly here in a way that he can hold up his own body weight. He needs to also be fairly strong. All right, so 1, 2, and then this front leg is actually coming down. There we go. So this front leg is actually coming down up in front of this little fruit fly that our poor friend here collected himself. So we have a number of, let's see, doop, 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 doop. Let's do that. I'm going to be adding the hair and the fluff also, but I did want to get our friend's kind of overall outline taken care of. So that's our robber fly here. Let's see. Mosquitoes are secret lepidopterans. Well, maybe. I mean, mosquitoes also have a piercing and sucking mouth part, you know, and that's kind of proboscis-like. And sometimes I have students that call the fly's mouth part a proboscis. So, I mean, that's very true. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and sketch our little fruit fly here that's being eaten. Poor friend. He doesn't know what he did wrong. All right, so that's our little that's our little fruit fly that our friend is eating here. I'm gonna come in and I want to do these seeds because they are so cute. I've been dying to do these in ink. So we've got all the seeds. So are you all that are watching me, are you also doing Inktober? Are you also doing ink sketches every day? I'm not sure if you are or not, but, oh, you know something funny? I had mentioned to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I was on the news, and they had asked me to bring, like, good luck to the sports teams. So I brought, like, my tarantula and some cave crickets, some camel crickets, and some ladybugs to bring some good luck. And I got a call from them today, and they want me to come back. they wanted me to come back, if the Phillies lost their game today, because essentially I'm bringing good luck to the Phillies baseball team. But we actually won today, so they said, maybe we'll call you on Thursday or Friday. So I am on call at the at Fox 29 News, and I think that is so cool. That makes me kind of happy. Alright, so I've got my fly here, I've got all these dandelion poofs. It is time to come in here and give myself some of these generic flies. I do believe that these are, when I was sketching them, I was thinking of, fruit flies, kind of like just a bunch of little Drosophila. But these ones are kind of in the background, so the details aren't going to be as clean on these. We just want to make sure that they have a head, they have some type of eye, an antenna, thorax, 3 legs, a wing. We want to give them their haltere because that's what makes them a fly, and I think that they're fun. And then some abdominal segments. Some of them I'm going to give the horizontal line, some of them I'm not going to. Just kind of keep it different and to keep them looking unique. And then, after I get our friends done here, we can talk about our next card, which is the 8 of Swords. Alright, 2 more. And it's funny because I had done and had chosen the cards that I had to draw a whole bunch of flies. But I couldn't figure out one for the 2 or the 3. And I laugh about that because I did all the ones that are like, almost more work first. But maybe that's a good thing. Alrighty. I'm actually pretty happy with how that one turned out. So we'll see kind of what it looks like in the background. I might end up adding a little bit of symbology. Sometimes I'll even add the symbol for the chakra that it aligns with. But we'll see what it comes down to when the sketch is finalized. Ooh. And it sounds like Susan says she's not doing Inktober fully, but you are definitely trying to use ink in your sketches, and that's cool too, Sometimes doing something every day, or at least like putting that type of pressure on yourself, makes you not want to do it even more, and I understand that. Alright, our next sword is not the 7 of Swords, but the 8 of Swords. Alright, now the 8 of Swords I have here. So this may look kind of confusing to you. This is a bit of amber. I wanted to put flies in amber, so it's a whole bunch of different types of flies. I think there's a 10 threadinid, and a mosquito, and a Drosophila, and some other kind of old-timey flies, like dinosaur-aged flies back here that are really dark. And so that's what the sketch is of. A lot of times the meaning for the 8 of Swords is kind of helplessness, or being kind of imprisoned by your own thinking, or imprisoned by your own circumstances. So it's kind of like, it's a card that is aligned with kind of a victim mentality, where you take on all of these circumstances, and instead of processing them and moving forward, you get caught in amber and you get stucked. And so that's the story behind this card. A lot of times the Eight of Swords also has a man who is blindfolded, and I kind of wanted to also get that blindfolded symbology in here somehow, even though I know that technically these flies, because they are frozen in time, can no longer see. I just went ahead and kind of drew this like cloudy face in the distance with just a little bit of a nose and mostly just like this mask over his face. I thought that that would be kind of a cool symbol in front of this piece of amber. A couple of other things that also generally show up is doors, because a lot of times when you are seeing doors in a card, it's talking about bloop bloop bloop, like oh, I'm having a hard time. Like inner thoughts. Like this is like this these are the doors to your mind, essentially. And in your mind, the flies are literally stuck in amber because you feel you're weakened by your circumstances and you're imprisoned by your own thinking and all that type of stuff. And so that is the idea behind this. Yes, this is the constellation for Gemini. And it also has, because it's a fly, it also has air in the symbology, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to get air into this yet, other than the fact that they're flies. And that already kind of aligns. This one I question doing in ink because I have a very specific vision planned to do this on the computer. So I don't know if I want to ink this one just yet, but I did want to show them to you. So there you go. Aha! We have to flip this one over. The Nine of Swords is our next card here. And the Nine of Swords, do you recognize these down here? These are rat-tailed maggots. Yes. These are rat-tailed maggots. So what we have here is a flower fly. That is the adult fly to these maggoty guys down here. Rat-tailed maggots are, as gross as they sound, they're like these large white blobular grubs. Maggots, and they have these long thin tails that look very much like rat tails, and at the very end of their tail they have a spiracle, and that tail is actually the tube that they breathe through, because they live in such fetid and disgusting waters that they can't breathe the oxygen out of the water, so they need to have a snorkel to be able to breathe. And so the Nine of Swords, the card is a lot of times something along the lines of like a person waking up from a horrible nightmare with like a bunch of swords hanging over their heads. And it's the card symbolizes a lot of like worry and anxiety and fear, and kind of like nightmares that lead into racing thoughts. And I thought, what is the most nightmarish fly that I can think of? And I went with the rat-tailed maggot. Now, admittedly, there are many people that I have talked to now that said, oh, those are kind of cute. So, I am curious how many of you out there, if you're watching this now or if you're watching this in the future and we're not live, I want you to go to Google and I want you to look up a rat-tailed maggot. Alright, just look at what they look like. And then let me know. You can go ahead and comment. I want to know if you think it is absolutely like fear-inducing, or if you think it's kind of cute. Because I need to take a poll. Alright, so with these rat-tailed maggots, a lot of times You're seeing these because you are being told that you're supposed to kind of be confronting your own fears. So when you see these, yes, you're being plagued by anxiety and worry, and you're having a hard time sleeping or other things. Those are all things that'll happen when this Nine of Swords is getting drawn in your readings. And yeah, curiosity. What do you think about the rat-tailed maggots? Now, this fly here is actually a flower fly, so it is a bee mimic. It's going to be black and yellow striped. They look a lot like a cute little bee when they're an adult. And so I'm going to be sketching him up here, essentially just so that people know what they look like also as adults. I'd hate to give them an absolutely, gross image of this friend, but then not show them what the adult looked like. And so that's what we're going to do over here. And I'm not going to give him all of his abdominal segments because I'm not happy with where those lines are. But I am just going to finish it up like this. And I'm going to give him my wing here. Awesome. And so that's our fly up here on the top. And then down here, this is where we have those rat-tailed maggots. And up here on the very surface of the water, all of these little circles, these are where our maggots are breathing through. Now, you can actually tell the health and the water quality of a water body just by knowing what type of insects live in that water body. All right. So when I was pretty young, I would volunteer for this group called Friends of the Rouge, and we would go out and we would go collecting aquatic insects to determine the health of the Rouge watershed. So there are a handful of insects like stoneflies, caddisflies, mayflies. Those are going to be insects that generally show that you've got a healthier water body. But then you have insects like, leeches and rat-tailed maggots, and maybe even some isopods and some midges, that they don't care about the water quality. Nothing kills them, right? And so you'll find different insects just depending on water quality. And you can also run all of these crazy statistics to determine, not only health, but how oxygenated the water is, because there are some insects that are super sensitive to needing highly oxygenated water. Some of them are specifically, killed by certain types of insecticides, so if you notice that there's none of them around, you can kind of pinpoint what's affecting them. It's really an interesting topic, and I know that not only do universities study the macroinvertebrates and which ones kind of indicate health in water bodies, but you can also have a government job. There are government officials that go out and they test the water quality by collecting bugs and then going back to the lab, either identifying the insects themselves or sending them to a lab to be identified. All right, and those are our 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 rat-tailed maggots and 1 adult. 9 of swords. Very good. So our next tarot card that we're going to be discussing is the 10 of swords. Obviously, we're going up in number 1 at a time. So our 10 of swords. Now, the Ten of Swords is all about hitting rock bottom. All right? It's all about being given up. It's about closure. It's about, you know, maybe this card will show up if you have like a whole bunch of self-pity and you're taking these situations on and you feel like you've hit rock bottom even though you haven't, right? So it can be either way. It can be, wow, you're really, really hitting a tough one. Or it can be like, wow, you are so, like, taking on so much of your own pity that you really believe that you've given up and you've hit rock bottom and this is it and that's the end of it. Well, the card naturally is regularly in decks is like a man who has been stabbed by 10 swords and he's just laying on the ground. It's kind of a sad card. And when you see it and you flip it over in your readings, you know that there is, you know, your stomach sinks and you're like, ooh, that one doesn't look so good. And so that's the idea behind this card. It's like, all right, what can we do that says like something, that there's definitely rock bottom happening here. And so I thought, instead of having a bunch of living flies flying all over the place and having a good time, or like living in their own beautiful fetid water like they want to, I figured the Ten of Swords would be this really pretty garden spider, and he has 10 flies. He has caught himself a whole grand total of 10 flies. And so I imagine that this web is connected to a stone that's kind of cut out, or maybe multiple stones. And we've got this sun coming through the background. The sun is going to be definitely a symbol on here. I did kind of want to add a water body somehow. And so I was thinking about adding a water body in the background in some way. Maybe like in here, in the background. Like that this, maybe this rock is at the edge of like a beach or an ocean where I'll have like sand going out to the ocean right here. And then we've got this spider with all of these little flies. Welcome, all of you newcomers. I just had a whole bunch of people join us, and I want to say welcome. If this is your first time here, you can always go ahead and subscribe. Hit the little notification bell so that you know when we're going live. And if you have any buggy questions at all, go ahead and ask them, even if they're not related to this card in general, because I love to just talk bugs. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start inking, and I want to ink, I'm actually going to probably start with this spider first. And I know that I'm actually just going to be doing the legs in single lines rather than kind of doing them bubble like I would, like rectangles 3D. I'm just going to give them one line because, as you know, this spider is not counted in my 10, and so I don't want to give it too much space on my card. But also, let's see. So we've got that taken care of. I don't remember where the but also was going. Sorry about that. So I've got my spider here. I have a whole bunch of really pretty, beautiful intricateness happening here. And honestly, I don't want to do it wrong with my pen, so I'm going to have to re-look up an image of this exact spider before I go ahead and redo that. But what I can go in and do is I can go in and add this little... You know how orb weavers, they'll have this kind of center silk that's kind of darker than all the rest? I can go in and add that a little bit. And we're going to go and I do want to just add our spider web. The spider web is kind of bent just a little bit. I wanted it to kind of look like it was blowing in the wind. Because, as you know, the swords, we've mentioned it a couple times now, the swords are symbolic of air and wind. And so we try to work wind into as many of these cards as possible. We've got these main strands of our spider web done. Now we're going to go in and add some internal ones here. So our 10 of Swords is all about these little flies. And before I go too much further, I'm going to be adding all of our little flies in here. Now, they are likely not going to have all of their body parts all of the time, and their wings and faces might look a little bit different. But that's just because they've been caught by this fly, or they've been caught by this spider. And so some of them still have details like wings and abdomens, and some of them are just kind of wrapped up in this silk here. I thought that one or two of them might not have legs, so we're just going ahead, and these are our sad little 10 of Sword flies. Let's see, this guy actually has 2 eyes that we can see. That one's cool. I like him. So they're just kind of different, and you can always, and they're all unique to their own. I was hoping that that would be the case. And then, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this little guy there, is that 10? I might add another one here. No, that would make it look too even. I'm going to add it here. Alright, so we've got our 10 flies here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. And then we can go back in and add some of these internals for my spider web. I'm actually pretty happy with how our 10 of Swords is going. So that's a pretty fun, this guy is a pretty fun card. I am hoping that by the end of October, I'm going to be close enough to finishing these tarot cards that I'll be able to be kind of putting some final touches on them and getting them ready to be going out, hopefully for Christmas is my goal. So we've got a spider web. Yay! I'm gonna leave the actual symbology and the colors on the abdomen alone, and we're gonna go on. Ooh, all right. So that's a thing. All right, the 10 of Swords was the last one that I had actually planned. The other 4 cards are face cards in the Swords, and they are the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King of Swords. Like we had mentioned, all of the swords are going to be flies, but I hadn't come up with their unique meanings yet. So I was thinking, instead of finishing up, let's see what we can do. So the Page of Swords, any of the face cards, we say that the face cards are either you or a person that you know or will encounter. And so when you're seeing these, cards, it's not just that you're seeing an event, or you're seeing a feeling, or you're seeing like an occurrence in your life, but you're actually seeing an individual who is either representative of you or somebody that you know doing a thing. All right, so that's what the idea behind the face cards are. The Page of Swords is youthful and cautious and thoughtful, and he's willing to seek justice, essentially above all else. And so he takes risks, he communicates, and he's a lot of times going to be one of those guys that always tells you the truth. And so truthful, kind of justice, thoughtful, fly. And that's why I haven't come up with a fly just yet, because I'm not sure exactly who would be described in that sentence there. Our Knight of Swords here. I'm admittedly getting a little tired, so we're gonna go a little quicker. The Knight of Swords is also a person, but this one is more of like a sharp-minded, direct, idealistic person, kind of a debater and problem solver. So rather than being kind of thoughtful and very focused on like justice, like cautious, both cautious and youthful, kind of truthful and justicey, that's the Page. The Knight is more like, he is a direct and he's idealistic, and a lot of times he's gonna let his feelings drive him, rather than looking for justice. He kind of just goes with the flow, and yeah, so one of the things that you can think of is like they're going to feel really passionately about their own ideas and their own feelings, but they also aren't going to like spare anyone else's feelings while they're getting their points across, right? One of those people that you can think of that's really direct and to the point, even if it's kind of sharp, even if it's just a little bit hurtful. They are super intelligent, but they kind of jump to their own conclusions and kind of can poke at you a little bit on accident, or without even meaning to. And so that's going to be our Knight of Swords. The Queen is independent. She has great clarity of thought. I wish I had a fly for you. You know what? I'm not going to spoil the Queen and the King. What I want to do is I want to give a little bit of time to think about who I think the Queen and the King of the Flies should be. I definitely want these to be flies that are seen and known by most people. I want them to be kind of strong and powerful when you look at them. Kind of like you know that they are holding the space and holding their own. So I'm going to actually take a moment to think about this one a little bit closer. Horsefly goes directly for what it wants without regard for your feelings. I like that. And this horsefly can be a really close-up image of a horsefly with really good, like, wing venation and everything, too. Because this is a face card, so we want there to be a little bit more definition, and we only want one insect on it. So we're so used to seeing, 5, 6, 7, 8, so many flies. This one is going to be, like, one very unique horsefly with really beautiful wing venation. I think that could be really cool. I might also look for other flies that are blood-sucking, because we have the horse flies already for, I believe, the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords, where they're kind of stabbing into this heart. Let's see. This one, I had imagined was also kind of horse flies, and so I'll have to think about that and change it up just a little bit. I love it. Ooh, botflies. You know what? I wonder if the botfly could be the Knight of Swords. Like, rational, not letting his feelings drive him. Like, passionate about his own ideas and not letting anyone else's feelings get in the way. You know, a botfly biting onto another animal and just doing what he needs to do to survive. Direct. Sharp-minded, or just sharp, pointy. You know what? I believe the Knight of Swords could be a botfly. Rather than a horsefly, because he is still not regarding anyone else's opinions. But then also the botfly has a really, really crazy, kind of scary looking head. So I might even, so I might go like a big close up of the head. So I was just looking to see which suits I have completed. I do believe, yes, I have completed the entire cup suit, so all of the butterflies and moths I've gotten done. I'm excited about showing those with you. And then we have the pentacles to do, and the pentacles are beetles, and admittedly, I need to work on those. I don't know if I have very many of them done, but they'll be the last week, so I'm hoping to get a good number of them done before we get to talk about them. Alright, so what I've been doing at the end of our sessions a little bit is kind of picking a handful of the major arcana to go over. Because we don't have a one day devoted to the major arcana, although we probably should because they're super major. I've just been going over a couple at a time. We went over the devil last week. Actually, we did these ones on the top are the ones we did. All right, very good. So, this next one right here is a queen ant, and she's like the queen. She has this little crown and a little staff. The staff is just a symbol, but she is the Hierophant, and the Hierophant is a teacher. And she's generally like she's talking about your belief system, having like a belief system, deep depth in knowledge and responsibility. And she is actively teaching, or she's going to be caring for these eggs. Now, when ant eggs hatch, they do learn. And so that's why I went with teaching and learning on this one. When an ant egg hatches, the maggot is the one who smells their own colony, and they learn and essentially imprint on their own colony. So, if you were to take an ant egg before it hatches, and it was the same species, and you move it into another colony, there is a good portion of the time when that egg hatches, that egg just becomes a part of that colony and never remembers they were anywhere else, because they learn their colony the moment that they hatch. All right, hi Darlene. I'm so happy that you love bugs too. Can I have a vial or two of your brain matter? Oh man, that's so funny. Feel free to ask questions. As you ask questions and you learn, your brain matter can get bigger too. Or at least collect information. All right, now, this is the Emperor. And the Emperor, he's got a couple of symbols like the ram and the ankh. But this, my my friends, is a dung beetle, and he's rolling a whole ball of dung, and he's got it up here on his head because I thought that that would be really awesome. So here, this is our beautiful dung beetle, and the emperor, its symbology is in power and structure and stability. A lot of times he's a father figure and more of like an authority, and so a lot of times it's about like rules and stability and structure and that type of stuff. But the first word I think of is power, in the emperor, and powerful. And then I was thinking about the strength of insects. And the strongest insect on the entire planet is Onco something Taurus. It's a species of dung beetle. So the strongest beetle on the entire planet is not a Hercules beetle. It used to be the Hercules beetle, but it got beaten out by this species of dung beetle. And it has the ability to pick up something like 1,650 times its own body weight. So that is why I went with the dung beetle, for power and structure, but also for stability, because he can roll this huge pile of dung. All right, let's see. And then after the emperor, obviously we get the empress, right? The empress is nurturing. She is creative and sensual, and a lot of times considered a mother figure, because she's the lady, she's the empress. And so when we see her in a reading, a lot of times they're asking you to reconnect with your sensual or creative side. Your mom might actually be significant if you see the Empress. So those are the types of things we're thinking about, is like motherhood, maybe your actual mom, maybe your connection with nurturing of friends and family. That's what we're looking at with the Empress. And when I think of, a nurturing insect, admittedly, I will think of honeybees, just because they really take care of one another, and she is the literal mother of all of the workers, right? And so there are a handful of symbols in here. The hexagon's like her hive. This is kind of her throne. And then if we look inside of the compass here on our little hexagon rug, we have the female symbol down here. So there's a couple of symbols in here that I chose to add. Just some flowers so that she can be nectaring, so she doesn't have to be sitting on her throne, those types of things. It would be so great if we could just download information into our minds. I used to talk about that when I was in university. So Darlene mentioned, I'm waiting for them to come out with a memory chip. But I mean, that's totally a thing they should come up with, because, it's like, I want to read this book. Let's just imprint it into my brain, and now I know it. But, are these runes? Yes. Darlene, these are the runes that are associated with they're the runes that are associated with the symbology and the tarot card. I personally don't know a lot about runes, but I do know that there are runes associated with most of the major arcana cards. And so I connected them there they've got all of them, I think, have them. The runes and the chakras that the cards relate to, and the colors and the symbology, when I color these in, will also align with the deck. So yes, there are runes, but I unfortunately don't have the ability to really share information about them. I could look them up probably quickly enough to talk about them, but they're not something that I know as well as I know the tarot cards in general and some of these other symbols. Now, we have the High Priestess. The High Priestess is all about spirituality. It's about inner wisdom. It's maybe about trusting your inner wisdom. Maybe you've got, you see this card and you should spend a little bit more time in solitude or in silence, kind of thinking and going over what, where you're moving forward. You also may want to, if you're seeing the High Priestess, you may also want to be paying attention to your dreams, because a lot of times your intuition and your dreams and your reception is really strong at this point, and you may be getting messages from your dreams. So a lot of times when you see the High Priestess, you're looking for answers from within. And the moon is definitely one of those symbols in this card that's really strong. And so when I think of the moon and I think of moths and I think of like spirituality and inner wisdom, I think of the Luna moth. All right. The moon's name is Luna, right? So this moth is actually named after the moon. And she does have a handful of eye spots, and you can kind of imagine those as maybe kind of seeing into yourself or looking into yourself. She is wearing a crown and a veil as part of the symbology in her card. And for me, this is just something I've always done, and if it's something that I've kind of done, I wanted to also be adding a little bit of myself into these tarot cards. I didn't want them to be just strictly, like, this is the symbol, this is the bug, put it together, it's the card. I was trying to also, like, add a little bit of me into it. And I've always, when I draw Luna moths, they make me feel musical. They make me feel musical. So a lot of times I'll like add music notes all around a Luna moth. Because I always feel like when they're flying, they could almost be creating music. But I've been doing this since I was young too. I created a poetry book called Heart Melodies, and the image was this Luna moth in front of a moon. And so it's a sketch I've been doing since I was young, and I really wanted to get it into the deck. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. I decided to not do music notes, but to do different types of rest beats. So we've got quarter rests, and we got half rests and quarter rests all over the place. And these are indicative of me. I imagine them saying, all right, like, take a break. You know, spend a little bit of time in the quiet, in the solitude, and listen to your inner wisdom. And so that is the Luna moth. All right, let's do one more. We're going to do one more major arcana, and then we will, looks like we'll probably, yeah, we'll be done for the day. We're closing in on midnight, and I got to get up in the morning. So, card number 1. I have them numbered just for me. But yes, this is card number 1. And the first card here is the Magician. And yes, Susan, she loves it. It is a bagworm. Exactly. I always thought that the Magician was kind of magical, right? This is a bagworm. It's kind of magic. It has the ability to pick up these kind of branches and sticks from around it and make its own case. So the Magician is not only about kind of personal power, but also about the way that you use your resources and being very resourceful, like resourcefulness. And when I'm thinking about an insect that's using its resources to the fullest, I think of bagworms. Now, admittedly, a little earlier, somebody mentioned ambush bugs, and I think that would have also have been a really good good insect for the Magician. Not ambush bugs. It's the assassin bug that covers itself in the sticky goo. The something hunter. The bee hunter. Give me a minute. Masked hunter. So I thought of the masked hunter would also be a pretty good insect for this because he's using his resources. But the thing is that the magician also has the potential to make things happen with either their intentions or their actions. And so this is a bagworm. He's being resourceful and he's gathering his resources. He's coming together. He's doing something. And in response, the universe is going to manifest his vision and he's going to turn from this silly little caterpillar into a beautiful moth. And as long as he's a male, he'll be able to fly around. Susan got it, the masked hunter. Thank you so much. It's like, you know, even us entomologists every now and again get tongue-tied or don't have the ability to, you know, think up an insect on the spot. So I super appreciate that helper right there, Susan. Alrighty. So that is the magician, and that is a rose. I really, really tried. Sometimes roses are a little tricky for me. But that leaves... Let's see. That leaves... I'm counting to see how many more major arcana we have now for the next time, because we already did a couple of these. Let's do one more, because then we'll be even. And we've got about 10 minutes until midnight. All right, so this is for realsies our last one. Tee. You know me, I like to make these live streams as long as possible, especially when I have people hanging out with me. Susan says this is a great rose. Oh, thank you. I super appreciate it. It took me longer than it took me to draw the bagworm because I was like, all right, I was really insistent that I really wanted this one to be good. You're having fun trying to guess what I'll do. That's awesome. All right, this card is Temperance. Now, Temperance was a little tricky, and there's a whole lot of symbology happening here, including the types of flowers, and the chalices, and the rivers coming down the mountains, and the angel wing. There's a whole lot of things happening, but when we're talking about Temperance, we're talking about two or more things coming together to create something new, kind of integrating and finding balance, and experimentation and combining of things. And so when I'm thinking about when I'm talking about integrating two things and creating something new, or finding a balance and combining and experimentation, you know, the first insect that came to my mind is Drosophila. I think this is specifically Drosophila Melanogaster. Maybe it's Heidi. It's whichever one that the scientists did the first genetics. They did its entire genome. There's a fruit fly that they did the entire genome. Drosophila Melanogaster. I was right with my first guess. All right. So, Drosophila Melanogaster was the first fly, and maybe even the first animal to have its entire genome, genome graft. And so, Temperance is specifically talking about, like, experimentation and compromise and creating. And they would do tests on these flies where you would say, all right, you cross a red-eyed with a black eye, and you see what colors of eyes their babies have. You can cross them so that so that they have the ability to fly and so that they don't have the ability to fly. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can cross and interbreed these flies, and because their lifespans are so short and their life cycle is so quick, you can actually run these experiments in the average classroom. In a high school science lab can run the experiments with Drosophila Melanogaster. Temperance like tempering steel, not temperance as in refraining from alcohol. Yes, exactly. Thank you for that clarification, Susan. It's temperance like tempering, yes, like combining, and very, very good. Ideally, this card doesn't want you to change everything all at once. It's not talking about huge change. It's talking about more like experimental change. Changing one variable at a time, seeing what happens, and then going back to the experiment and seeing how you change. And so this card could say something like, all right, maybe you need to start balancing your work and your play, right? Maybe you need to start balancing this or that. And instead of making a huge change, experiment with that change. Do it one step at a time, see what happens, then continue and moving forward. And Susan did that in high school. Actually worked with the experimentation of Drosophila Melanogaster. Yeah, high schools do it all the time. So that is a very nifty thing. Alrighty. Woof. We've been at this for approximately 2 hours now. I have had a whole lot of fun. Look at me, I grew big. All right. I have had a whole lot of fun chatting with you ladies, talking about the tarot deck, talking about some of the sketches that I've made. We specifically went over the swords today, so we got to look at a bunch of different types of flies. We got to talk about a number of different flies, but also I feel like I've got a couple of holes in my flies. I know that I need to add a couple of the queen and the king. I need to come up with like the big flies. And you know, I'm just now realizing I don't have a crane fly. So a crane fly might try and work its way in there at some point. So, this is your reminder that I am actually live streaming every single night of the week. I am live streaming every single day of October. We are celebrating Invertober, where every single night I come here, I go live, we do something. It is all planned. It is on the John Law's calendar, but if you would like an overview, Mondays we do live animal meet and greets. Next Monday, you're meeting my chinchillas. Alright, so they are not inverts, but they're going to be super cute, and you should definitely join us for meeting my chinchillas. Tuesdays we do tarot, so we just got done our Tuesday here. We've got 2 more Tuesdays to go and 2 more sets of 2 more suits of the tarot deck. So we've got those. Wednesdays and Fridays, I've been doing ink lines of previous sketches that we've done over our microscope. So they're almost like review days, but we talk about like older sketches. So if you've missed some of the older days, it's kind of like a refresher without having to go back and watch the last hour. Let's see, so that's Wednesdays and Fridays. Thursdays and Sundays, we do brand new sketches using my microscope. So we do pencil sketches, and I let the audience pick the animal that we're sketching that day. My collection is pretty well spread. I've got a good number of most insect. Like I've got a good number of families. So if you think of it, I probably have it to sketch. So we do that Thursdays and Sundays. And then the final day of the week I haven't mentioned is Saturdays, and we spread death's head moths on Saturdays. So that's why we've got a death's head moth here in my graphic, but we are working with them every Saturday. Because I've got about 40 more to spread, maybe 35-ish more to spread. So we've got lots to do. Alrighty. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for spending some time with me. And getting to see some of these tarot decks and getting to talk with me and to me about some of these symbols. It actually did really help that a number of your suggestions, and they're going to be going into the deck. So I super appreciate any help you guys give me while we're also live streaming together. So much fun. So this is my live stream closer page. I'm sure that you have seen it before. That little symbol up there means that I teach on OutSchool. It's classes that are for school-age children, ages 5 to 8, 9 to 12. If you have children or grandchildren, or if somebody is looking, if you want to gift somebody classes, you can actually find a link in the description box below, and that will give you $20 free towards classes. So feel free to share it and go in and use it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already. We go live regularly, and once we're done with Invertober, I'm hoping that I'm going to be back to being super motivated and having time and energy to actually go in and do some more whiteboard videos. They take a little bit more editing, but they are so much fun to make. This little QR code right here, that's where you can tip me. If you've really enjoyed spending time with me today, if you learned something, if you're going to take any of this knowledge back with you and you're going to share it with your friends or your family, or you're going to think about all of the different cards and the meanings behind insects and symbology and those types of things, I always super appreciate having an extra couple of dollars or getting donations from these. YouTube does not pay me. Right? So this is just for funsies because I love it. So feel free to buy me a coffee or buy my bugs some food. Or my beautiful chinchillas. They super appreciate it. All right. If you are trying to find me on social media and you can't, it may be because you're searching at Insectopia and you're missing 2015. So I have 2015 2015 at the end of my hashtag for both Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to go find me at those places. Follow me, subscribe, do all the things. I super appreciate it. Find me on all the social medias. And I will be back tomorrow, and we will be outlining one of my old sketches in ink. So we're going to be picking out some buggies to chat about. I'm really excited. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I definitely hope to see you next week. And stay buggy. Bye.